favour, Graham, can you just show me one of the JHR cars, Josh Skelton, if he's on track? Hey, that's white or grey? That's what I thought. I just wasn't sure. I've got a spotter's guide, but I couldn't tell whether that was the actual colour. Right, okay. In black, that's fine. That's fine. Just so I can make note of which colours, which team. So I always get Arden and Fortec mixed up because they're so similar. Maybe. We'll go with. Welcome everybody to the second round of the inaugural British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy here from the iconic Brands Hatch in the Garden of England, Kent, down in the southeast of the country, for rounds 3 and 4 of this 14 race championship, which already is delivering upon the promises made pre-season. Close racing, a competitive field, and a championship that still, albeit we are at an early stage, remains wide open. It's going to be a fascinating evening of racing here at Brands Hatch. 2 races coming your way, both of 20 minutes of duration. The first of which will be coming to you hopefully at around about 8 o'clock this evening. My name is Andy McEwen, and it's my pleasure once again to be on board here in the commentary box to talk through the action here at Brands Hatch, as I was for most of the previous round at Donington Park. A couple of technical issues kept me out of the bulk of the second race, but having that race back and caught up on all of the action at Donington, I have to say I'm even more miffed now that I missed it, because there was some truly astonishing wheel-to-wheel action around the Donington Park National Circuit a week ago, and it has set us up nicely here arriving at Brands Hatch to begin now the middle part of the season. The opening couple of race championship always fascinating as we try and establish who the front-running drivers are likely to be, how they get into the meat of the season, and those who've had a good start try to consolidate the points they earned last time out. Those who maybe didn't have such a profitable run at Donington Park have an opportunity to restart their championship campaign today. So we're going to have a look at the points, I think, in a moment or two, but first of all, should we have a look at the calendar of events for the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy. We are, as I said, at the second race meeting of the season here at Brands Hatch, having kicked things off at Donington Park. Now, this is the first of 2 visits to Brands Hatch that we make it. It's, of course, going to be playing host, as ever it does in the real world championship, to the final rounds on the 8th June. This is where the championship was decided on pre-circuit. Today, though, we're racing on the shorter Indy circuit, this all-action 1.2 mile Brands Hatch Indy circuit. We head to another short and sharp circuit next time out at the Silverstone National Track on the 11th of May, whilst Alton Park on the 18th of May plays host to the championship's midway point of the season. Snetterton 300 track is where we will be on the 25th of May before a second visit to Silverstone, this time the international layout on the 1st of June. Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, as I said, playing host to the title decider on the 8th of June. And based on what we've seen so far in the first 2 races of the season, I think the championship's pretty likely to go all the way to the wire. So what have we got in store for you tonight? Well, at the moment, the cars are out on track in their first 2 free practice sessions. The second one will be after race 1, just a brief 10-minute session before the second race gets underway. But we have a packed night of entertainment for you, that's for sure. It's about 10 minutes left of this practice session, after which we will head into qualifying. That will be a 10-minute affair as the drivers try to set a good enough grid position for potentially flat tire, for pole position or race number 1. That qualifying session will be a lone qualifying session, so they'll all be out there on the track individually, but we can track their progress simultaneously for the duration of the 10-minute session. We then head into race number 1. That's due to kick off at about 8 o'clock. 20 minutes will be the length for race number 1, agreed based upon the results from the qualifying session preceding it. Then, after we've heard from our top 3 drivers, we'll go into a short break. A second free practice session will begin to allow the drivers time to change over servers from race 1 to race 2, and then we're going to bring you race number 2 somewhere around 20 to 9 UK time at the end of the evening. And that one features the always exciting reversed grid. It's virtually a full reverse grid. Anyone who is classified as a finisher and is still running at the flag at the end of race number 1 is thrown into the reversal, and if you finished last, you start on pole for race 2. If you won race 1, though, you'll be right towards the back of the field in the second race. That certainly shook things up last time out at Donington Park, where we had brilliant racing, but it definitely got a little bit close to comfort, particularly in the second race of the day. Race number 1, though, was won by Chris Lulham, who has yet to compete, actually, in the British Formula 4 Championship, but has the illustrious career already behind him in karting, and he won that first race by nearly 6 seconds over Zach O'Sullivan second and Roman Malinsky in third position. And it was a brilliant battle for second between O'Sullivan, Malinsky and Luke Browning for the majority of the race, with Browning dropping back midway through and almost actually dropping out of the top 5 in the end, which was rounded out by Jonathan Hoggard in the first race. But really, that all allowed Chris Lulham to escape and take a pretty dominant victory. But then race 2 came around, and of course, all of a sudden, he had to contend starting towards the back of the field. And so Lulham, the winner of race 1, was only able to make it to 10th place in race number 2. And scored just a solitary championship point as a result. That race was won by Luke Browning, and he was the most consistent driver of the day. He had that 4th place in race 1, a win in race 2, ahead of Cian Lewis, Zach O'Sullivan, Ollie Bierman and Zane Maloney, the reigning British Formula 4 champion from Barbados. Luke Browning's win, though, in that second race, coupled with his top 5 from race 1, means that he arrives here at Brands Hatch as the points leader. Luke Browning, as I said, with the most consistent night of racing a week ago at Donington, arrives at Brands Hatch with 37 championship points, and that puts him just 4 points clear of Zach O'Sullivan in second position. And then our other race winner, Chris Lulham, is only third. So despite being by far the pace setter, arguably, at Donington Park, Chris Lulham ends up third place in the championship and 11 points off the early championship lead. Cian Lewis is 4th position. He's the top privateer as well. And rounding out the top 5, Roman Belinsky, then Ollie Bierman, Jonathan Hoggard, Zane Maloney, the reigning champ, down in 8th. The Prio is 9th, whilst Abby Pulling for JHR Developments rounds out the top 10 drivers in the championship. Still all to play for, though, and there were lots of drivers that we expected to go quite well last time out that maybe had 1 or 2 issues throughout the night, and therefore we might well see them getting into contention over the course of these 2 races and really trying to put themselves into a championship contending position. This man is definitely one of them, Zane Maloney, who, as I said, won the British Formula 4 Championship in 2019 in front of an adoring crowd at Brands Hatch in October. Not a local crowd necessarily, but a good 20 or 30 people at least, and flown in friends and family from Barbados, from where he hails. And they were there at Brands Hatch in the Paddock Hill Bend Grandstand, which he's just about to drive past into Paddock Hill Bend itself. And let me tell you, every time he came past that grandstand that weekend at Brands Hatch, an enormous roar came up from the spectators watching trackside as his supporters cheered him on, eventually to a championship victory. And Zane will be looking to add the British Formula 4 iRacing trophy to his ever-expanding cabinet full of trophies that he's won. But the Barbadian driver is not going to have things all his own way. It's quite clear the 16-year-old who won 10 races in the British Formula 4 Championship last year, which was a joint record, actually, with Jamie Caroline, another former champion, and also earned himself the Sports Personality of the Year award in Barbados, as voted for by his adoring public. So Zane Maloney, a very popular driver, and definitely one looking to a little bit further up the championship table tonight, really. He won't be particularly happy arriving here 8th place in points and some 27 points off this man, Luke Browning, who is your championship leader, the driver in for Fortec Motorsport. And Fortec all right, actually, out of that opening couple of races at Donington Park. They've got 3 drivers inside the top 7 in the points. And don't forget, there is also a teams championship, which we'll start really delving into in more detail later on in the season. But Fortec, I would say, probably came out of that opening fight of racing the best. They won both races because Chris Lulham, who won the first race at Donington, is one of Luke Browning's very rapid teammates, and another one of his teammates is Jonathan Hoggard, runner-up in the British Formula 3 Championship last season. And Jonathan Hoggard didn't get himself a win, and in fact, he didn't even score in race 2, and he won't score tonight. He keeps doing that. He's just we joined him way through an accident there, I think, coming through clearways. But Jonathan is 7th place in the championship as a result, but the 10 points that he scored in race 1 definitely helping Tech Motorsport in their quest to win the teams championship. Verone, we're focusing on now. He arrives here 13th place in the championship and didn't manage to score any points in race 2 in the end. He did manage to take 4 points in the first race. He is one of a handful of privateer drivers competing in the championship. So there are 3 independent drivers, we'll call them, which Verone is one, Oliver Bierman is another, and Cian Lewis is the third. And he is the other former champion we've got with us, along with Zane Maloney. Those 3 drivers not scoring points for their teams, they are simply racing for themselves. So they, when we get to the end of the season, have to worry about the added complication of a team's championship. And Nico Verone also not particularly worrying about who was slowing down in front of there. I think Zane Maloney may have just rear-ended him as he prepared to reset to the pit lane. So practice then has 5 minutes still to go, and we are approaching the all-important qualifying session. Before we do so, though, let's welcome in the first of several guests that we're going to have in the commentary box over the course of the evening, and my regular co-commentator these days on all things iRacing, Dan Blake. Dan, I know you were with us last time at Donington, ended up stepping in a bit more than you'd have maybe planned to in the commentary at Donington, which we must thank you for, but that means you got to enjoy possibly more of the racing than I did, really. Wasn't the racing good?
Oh, particularly, it was a fantastic meeting for the British F4 iRacing Trophy, and really looking forward to the second meeting. I know a lot of the drivers have spent a lot of their time practicing as well. It's just seen servers, practice sessions up most days, and there's a buzz about the drivers, a buzz about us. Everyone is really looking forward to the second meeting after what was a really entertaining and enthralling first meeting at Donington.
It was indeed, and it kept you busy on two fronts, because not only did you have to step into the commentary box when I unfortunately was waylaid with some technical issues, but you were also there at Donington Park in a slightly more official role, and that's the role you're going to be playing tonight again, isn't it?
Yeah, so I'm working as the clerk of the course for the British F4 iRacing Trophy as well, so it's my job to sort of look through everything and make sure that it's as fair as possible, and I'd like to thank British F4 for giving me the opportunity, and been consulting with the drivers today, and we've had some good discussions, and we're just going to keep things the way they were from Donington Park. It seems to go well. We did think about doing a couple other things, but we're just going to keep things the way it is for now, and everyone seems happy with that, and we'll let the racing do the talking.
It absolutely did, and you make the point that the driving standards last time were pretty good, really. You had the odd bit of wheel-to-wheel contact, which you can expect. That's racing, especially online-based racing, because sometimes connection issues and whatnot can cause some trouble, but generally I think you and most people were very happy with the driving standards. What in particular then are you looking for tonight? What challenges do you expect the Brands Hatch Indy circuit to throw up? I guess track limits are going to be a hot topic, aren't they?
But iRacing track limits is the one that we're going to be using for this, because that's sort of agreed that we were thinking about going to another direction with it, but we decided that we'll let the iRacing system do its bit for that. And really, in my pre-race briefing to the drivers, I let them, they're aware that Brands Hatch is a very tight circuit, so it's all about really space and respect, and making sure that they're aware that F3, which is on iRacing, you press the F3 button, it gives you a relative box of who's ahead of you, who's behind you, and it's about awareness really on the track this small.
Yes, where overtaking is sometimes not the easiest of things to do either, so that might at some point maybe tempt a few drivers into going for the odd lunge, so they need to be mindful of the fact that the clerk of the course is watching over them, and Dan, I'm sure you're going to do a great job maintaining the peace out there on the track, and making sure that we enjoy some great racing, but hopefully not too much crashing.
Thank you very much, Andy. Yeah, it's my intention to let these drivers go out and race. It's what we're all here to do, let them go out and race and enjoy it, and hopefully that's what they'll be able to do. And it's going to be, I'm really looking forward to this. As you say, driver standards have been really good, so hopefully I won't have too much work to do, and we can all sit back and enjoy what's sure to be an exciting meeting.
Very much looking forward to it. So thanks, Dan. I'll let you get off now, because we're only a minute and a half away now from our qualifying session, which is when Dan's official business starts. We've just spent the last couple of minutes discussing how brilliant driving standards have been, to a backdrop of cars screwing themselves at the Brands Hatch scenery left, right and centre. Driving standards have been good, but this track is a difficult one to keep on the black stuff. It's narrow, it's tight, it's very undulating, it features some of the most iconic corners in British motorsport, possibly in world motorsport, certainly in the shape of the first corner, Paddock Hill Bend, which we're about to watch Christian Mansell hopefully negotiate trouble-free, but you can see how difficult it is. There's a big bump on the apex, he misses on the entrance, he misses the apex, and then risks drifting out into that gravel trap, which, although that technically will count as succeeding track limits, I'm pretty sure it won't gain you any advantage. We've seen cars spinning out of this corner, Druids. We've seen cars getting it wrong at the next left-hander at Graham Hill Bend as well. It is very, very easy to get things wrong, and that's on your own in a practice session, let alone when you have got over 20 fierce competitors all vying for the same bit of real estate that you're currently occupying. So to be a really exciting pair of races, but I think qualifying is going to prove to be of particular importance, simply because position is so valuable here at Brands Hatch, because it's hard to overtake. If you can qualify in front of everyone else, then that is a very large part of your job done before we even really turn a wheel in the races. Checkered flag is out in practice then, which gives us a chance to build up now to qualifying. And this is not worth any championship points, but it is actually in the long run, because as I've just been saying, get yourself at the front of the grid. You've got the best chance possible of scoring those 25 championship points that you earn from a race win. How does qualifying work, I hear you ask? Well, if you weren't with us at Donington last time, or you're new to the way that things like iRacing work, for example, it is what we call a lone qualifying session. So the drivers all head out onto the track at the same time. They, on their individual TV screens and monitors, will not see any other cars. So we're watching cars heading out onto the track, and we can flick through from one driver to another. We're following Nathan de Villiers now, who is a new entrant to the championship, the 18-year-old South African karter, who is looking at racing, hopefully in Formula 4 at some point in the near future. Nathan de Villiers, we welcome him into the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy. He is completely by himself out on track. No traffic, no chances of yellow flags, no chances of getting impeded by any other driver. But they're all doing this simultaneously in their own separate little sessions, basically. So they get the 10 minutes to themselves, and they don't have to worry about dodging other drivers whilst they're out on track. Nathan, one of the drivers we're watching for, I believe we're experiencing some slight technical issues, though, with our cameras. I do apologise. We'll hopefully get that up and running as soon as we can. Sadly, just the nature of the beast, really, with this online sim racing. We rely on technology rather more than I'm comfortable with, and sometimes things can go wrong, unfortunately. But we'll try and get that sorted as soon as we possibly can. And I'm sure I'll get a whisper in my ear to let me know the problem has been solved. So hopefully we will get that resolved. In the meantime, I'm going to keep on telling you about lap times, because that really is what qualifying is all about. And although it's a short lap, it will still take them a couple of laps just to get the tyres up to full operating temperature. And once they do so, we'll start to see some meaningful lap times coming in. Christian Mansell, for what it's worth, is fastest right now with a 41.57. Alex Connor second, Nico Verone's third. So they're the only three drivers that have so far set lap times. Fred Lubin goes across the line now and jumps into an early second place. Fred Lubin will definitely be another driver to watch here. I think he maybe didn't get the best of showing last time out at Donington Park. Fred Lubin, I don't think, was able to break into the points, but actually he was one of very few drivers not to score points. I think I'm right in saying 7 drivers did not score last time out, and they were Christian Mansell, Matthias Zagazzetta, Rafa Martins, Alex Connor, Nathan Nico Pino, and Louis Foster. So actually only the 6. And Fred Lubin, therefore, by process of elimination, must have scored some points last time out. Indeed, he did. He scored 2 points in race 2, 16th in the championship. But yeah, only 6 drivers then didn't manage to get into the top 10 at Donington, which was a real advert, I think, for how competitive the racing was. The Leicestershire circuit. Lubin, like many others, looking to try and break back into the top 10 again this time around. So Lubin on his way through the session. Still, though, not that many drivers actually have been able to set real sort of genuine lap times here. Lubin, I can tell you, is about to come through and complete another lap. And 41.9 was his personal best. I think, unfortunately, my timing screen may possibly have frozen as well, just to add to our technical issues that we're having. Just getting another message as well from Dan Blake, clerk of the course, saying that Mikael Grundtvig was disqualified by the iRacing software for driving the wrong way down the pit lane. So he unfortunately has been disqualified from this session. So Grundtvig will not be setting a lap time. So the timing screen now, I've got my secondary timing screen running, and I can tell you Luke Brown. There we go. The first one's fired back into life now as well. That's good news. Luke Browning, then, championship leader, appropriately enough, has gone to pole position. And Luke Browning, 41.25. That appears to be a genuine lap time. I'm hoping that I think I've also got we've got the camera issue sorted now potentially, because we appear to be following Luke Browning and now Zach O'Sullivan, in fact, going up to Druids. Zach O'Sullivan is second fastest in the session and only 1/100th or 2/100ths of a second actually away from Luke Browning. So Browning O'Sullivan the top two. Zane Maloney now, though, jumps into second position. And a further improvement for Luke Browning too. So it's all changed just as quickly as I said that. It's now Browning, Maloney, O'Sullivan, Kramers, and Christian Mansell top five. Josh Skelton, goes sixth. Lulham, the race one winner at Donington, only seventh. Now it's worth pointing out as well that the cars are all running on a fixed setup, so they're all on the same setup as each other. However, it is a slightly different setup from the one that they ran on at Donington Park, because a lot of the drivers, when they tried to do some pre-event testing at Brands Hatch with the Donington setup on the car, said that basically they had absolutely no grip, and that's because Donington Park is a much more fast, open, and flowing racetrack than Brands Hatch Indy, and therefore you require a little bit less downforce to get through the high-speed corners. But here it's obviously a lot more technically demanding. That is why the drivers needed a bit more downforce. So they've still all running the same setup as each other, but it is a higher downforce setup on their Dallara F312 Formula 3 cars. And the only thing that they are able to change is brake bias, essentially. You can tweak the brake bias, but they can't do anything else to the setup. They're all stuck with the same setup. Making the obvious point as well, I would think it's obvious anyway, that the Dallara Formula 3 car is not the car that is traditionally used in the British Formula 4 Championship. That is, of course, the McGall 14 Formula 4 car. And the 1.6 litre engine you find in that car is a little different to the 2 litre engine that they've got in the Dallara right now. So it is a slightly different car. That's simply because the F4 car is not yet on the iRacing platform, so they're making do with the F3 car, which is a little bit quicker lap time wise, but provides very similar sort of racing. So I think we still have a few technical issues then. I thought we might have fixed them earlier on, but we clearly haven't, and that means that I believe you're not quite seeing everything that's going on in the track at the moment. Unfortunately, my timing screen keeps coming in and out as well, but I think I open up my secondary one again. No, that one's frozen too, but it was Luke Browning that was fastest last time we checked. Zach O'Sullivan second, Zane Maloney third, Chris Lulham up into fourth now, with Marion Kramers rounding out the top five, then Christian Mansell, Josh Skelton, Jonathan Hoggard, Alex Connor, Nico Verone rounding out the top 10. Still have under 3 minutes to go in the session, so there is a chance that we'll see some changes, although I think a lot of drivers have dived for the pit lane actually at this stage. Has allowed they maybe them a chance to just change some tyres. Like I said, they can't change the setup, but they can add, I believe, a fresh set of boots, and hopefully when they get back out there on track, they might be able to improve. Abby Pulling is still on the track though. She's just improved to 12th position. According to my timing screen, at least 3 drivers haven't set a time. Kian Jewis, Seb Prio, and we know Mikael Grundtvig is not going to get to go out there. So in reality, only 2, but they're 2 quick drivers, Kian Jewis and Seb Prio, who had slightly mixed times last time at Donington. The best placed of the 2 in the championship is Kian, who is 4th placed, but didn't score in race 1. And that meant that he started towards the front of the grid for race number 2, where he was able to finish second behind Luke Browning. So Kian Jewis 4th in the championship, Seb Prio down in 9th position, and he didn't score in race 1 either, but was only able to score 8 championship points for finishing 6th place in race 2. So Seb Prio, the one those 2 that has the most incentive maybe to get out there and set a quick lap time, but he now is back out on track, but certainly not setting lap times quite as early in the session as some others were. So is time ticking on now. We've got just over a minute left of qualifying. Say, unfortunately, my timing screen has now completely frozen, so I can't tell you whether things have improved or changed, but we will get there in the end. We've got a few minutes before race number 1 gets underway still. The timing screen, I've just been given a fix for the time, which has not worked, unfortunately. So, those who know me will know that computers and technology aren't often my friend. I've just so the times I'm seeing are correct. It's just the timer screen hasn't updated for a long time, so I was just double checking that nothing had changed. But it's still Browning, O'Sullivan, and Maloney, I think, the top 3. Chris Lulham 4th and Marion Kramer's 5th. But according to my rather unhelpful time screen, there isn't a single driver on track at the moment, which I find hard to believe with about 10 seconds left on the clock. Qualifying them very shortly will be over, and we will then be into our first race, 20 minutes duration. Hopefully, we'll be able to get back to the live pictures for you, overcome our technical issues because the time has now elapsed. The cars are starting to grid up ahead of race number 1 with Luke Browning on pole, Zach O'Sullivan 2nd, Zane Maloney 3rd, Chris Lulham 4th, and Kramer's 5th. And we have Mansell in 6th, 7th Josh Skelton, 8th Jonathan Hoggard, 9th Alex Collar, and 10th for Nico Verone. Of course, I'm being reminded by Dan Blake, our clerk of the course, that it's 10 minutes, the qualifying station, but they only get 4 laps. So that's why there was not that much activity in the second half of the session. So, cars are now lining up on the grid. We are, I think we're about ready to go racing then for the first time tonight at Brands Hatch in the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy. The lights go out, away they go, and from the pole position it is not a great start by the pole sitter, and it's going to be very close into the first corner. Zane Maloney goes up the inside, but it will be O'Sullivan. No contact! Oh, Zach O'Sullivan and Zane Maloney from the front of the field have made contact. They're both off the road, and that has caught up one of the red and white cars that was up there as well. It has all changed. Chris Lulham, I think that was, because he's dropped outside of the top 15. Drama already, another spin up in the background. That's Jonathan Hoggard possibly involved. Verone's had damage, and we thought it would be an eventful start to the race. It absolutely has proven to be. And remember, the drivers do not have a fast repair, so they're going to have to spend a lengthy amount of time in the pit lane to get the cars fixed up between races. That was drama aplenty at the start. There's more chaos now as well up at the top of the track with cars spinning off left, right, and centre. Kian Jewis, that is, that's gone around going through the final couple of corners. And, well, that was not quite what we had in mind for the start of this race. It looks as though there is the option for yellow flags and safety cars here to be enacted upon, and the cars are slowing down, and they are going to be brought to control behind the safety car. So all sorts kicking off. And I believe we have got the vision back now as well, which is good news, so we can show you some replays of what happened there. But let me tell you, it's Marion Kramer's that leads the way. So Kramer's has the lead. Luke Brown, the pole sitter, is second. Plays here at the start. Well, it's all sort of happened already up the road between the leaders, but then there's a car spinning down the right-hand side of the road. That's Christian Mansell, and then contact up at Druids. Around goes Fred Lubin, gets by Kian Jewis. That was Kian's first incident of the lap, and we know that later on in the lap he ends up pointing the wrong way up at the end, up at the far end of the track at Clearways. And so Kian Jewis. Now here's what happened. So, well, was the 51 car, wasn't it, then, that was going around the outside, Zach O'Sullivan, and he was trying to turn into the corner, but up the inside of him was Zane Maloney, and that is really, really tough to call. I mean, there was not much Maloney could do, in my uneducated opinion, perhaps, to avoid that, but it's a battle into the first corner, isn't it? Chris Lulham there, you saw, got involved too, ended up running wide onto the grass, and it has unfortunately taken out of the race, or into the pit lane for the being Christian Mansell, Jonathan Hoggard, Fred Lubin, Mikael Grundtvig, and Kian Jewis. Those drivers are all in the pits, whilst Nathan de Villiers possibly is back out on track, not entirely sure, but the leaders are behind the safety car. Kramer's the leader, so Carlin have the lead. Second place for Luke Browning. And Luke Browning, the championship leader for Fortec Motorsport, getting through that, which could prove to be significant later down the line. Zane Maloney, likewise, despite being involved in the initial contact, triggered it all off, is still there in third, with Josh Skelton fourth and Alex Connor fifth. Then James Headley is up to sixth. He's gained 5 places, but that's absolutely nothing compared to the gains from a few drivers behind him. Roman Belinsky started 17th. Now 7th. Abby Pulling has gained 4 places to 8th spot, and Seb Prio gains 9 positions to be in the 9th spot overall at the end of the third lap, whilst Chris Lulham, actually that could have worked out worse for Chris, because he's still 10th position, so he, if he finishes there, would still score a point, but definitely the driver that won the first race at Donington he has unfortunately delayed here at Brands Hatch. So, just like that though, they've cleared the mess up. We're about to go racing once again. Remember, this is a time-certain race, so 20 minutes will be the distance. It's not based on a number of laps, and Marion Kramers leads the field into Paddock Hill Bend with Luke Browning right behind him in second. They've already got a small gap over Zane Maloney in third. Josh Skelton is fourth, and Alex Connor then to round out the top five. Message from race control regarding the turn one contact. It looks like the blame has been apportioned to neither driver, simply that it was a netcode issue, the contact between Zach O'Sullivan and Zane Maloney, which I think is a fair assessment. It'll be investigated after the meeting, but unfortunately, as I said at the top of the show, things like that, technical issues and problems can sometimes lead to just little glitches, and it was the tiniest bit of contact. It didn't look almost as if there was contact basically from some angles, and we're going to put that one down to netcode problem and move on with the racing, which looks as though it's going to be pretty tight at the front of the field. Luke Browning in second place. You're riding on board with him now through Druid's Corner. Just set the fastest lap on what was basically the first uninterrupted lap of racing, a 41.59. He was a few hundredths quicker than Marion Kramers in front of him, but Kramers runs a little bit wide there out of Graham Hill Bend, and Luke Browning maybe sees his opportunity to close in on the car in front of him. And Kramers is the oldest driver on the grid, 22 years of age. Part of his career is behind him surely now. He's a former world karting champion in the 125cc class, and he beat nearly 100 drivers recently to win the inaugural FED Racing France scholarship set up by Jacques Villeneuve and Patrick Lemarie, and won his 2020 seat with Carlin in the British Formula 4 Championship as a result. So Marion Kramers is a new name to me, and I know will be to many of you as well, but he is a rapid racer, and he's proving that now here by leading the championship leader and race winner last time out at Donington Park, Luke Browning. Lulham, meanwhile, has already made progress since the restart. Remember, he restarted 10th, he's into 8th place now, ahead of Seb Prio, and Zach O'Sullivan has followed him through into the top 10 as well now. Lulham's next target will be Roman Belinsky, who he's up the inside of, and he could be about to go up another spot here into 7th place, side by side across the start-finish line then. On the left-hand side of your screen is Lulham, on the right is Belinsky, and Belinsky's going to have to duck back behind us, I think, as at the front of the field we have a lead change. Luke Browning has gone through. Luke Browning has got himself ahead of Marion Kramers at Paddock Hill Bend. And Luke Browning, winner of race number 2, last time out, got himself into the lead with a brilliant move there on the inside into Paddock Hill Bend. And he will now try and get his head down and pull clear of Marion Kramers if he can, in order to possibly become the first two-time winner of the season. Browning takes the lead. Kramers second, then Maloney third, then Skelton and Alex Connor fourth and fifth. It's Chris Lulham and Zach O'Sullivan, though, really, who are making the progress further down the order, because they have continued to make progress now. O'Sullivan into 9th spot as we speak. So Zach O'Sullivan arguably making better progress here than Lulham, because Lulham at least restarted in the top 10. That was not a luxury that Zach O'Sullivan had, and O'Sullivan's dander will be well and truly up now after that contact at the start of the race, during which he was tipped off into the gravel trap. Verone we're following now through Surtees. He rounds out the top 10. He's got himself ahead of Seb Prio, despite, I think, being involved in some of the contact there at the start of the race. There is Seb Prio, who has a famous father, but is very much making a bit of a name for himself now, really, in the world of GT racing. Here is O'Sullivan, meanwhile, going around the outside there, and is that him picking up another spot? Yes, it was, going around the outside of Roman Belinsky, so that's now 8th place for Zach. I believe there was another incident being investigated between cars 51 and 3, and that was at Paddock Hill Bend on the restart, or 15 and 3 possibly. That's no, 51 Zach O'Sullivan and 3 Rafa Martins, but no further action on that. I don't think we saw what caused that anyway off the restart, so it matters little. We're following now Zane Maloney. He's in 3rd place, but Josh Skelton is right behind him, and Zane Maloney does seem to be struggling. Now, what we don't know is if he's got some damage maybe from that first corner shunt. You'd imagine, yeah, in the front left corner of the car, the front wing has just been pulled up slightly, so it definitely won't be acting as it should be, that car. And he's now starting to form a bit of a queue behind him. Josh Skelton and Alex Connor are the 2 drivers with him. Head out of the left-hander at Graham Hill Bend. So Maloney really could do with a good finish here. Looking for his first podium of the season. He's in that 3rd place right now, but Josh Skelton is looking like the quicker of the 2. And we're on board now with Josh in the slipstream as he comes across the start-finish line up towards Paddock Hill Bend. He's going to pull to the outside because Zane Maloney is always going to defend the inside line. And how brave is Skelton on the brakes? He decides not to go right round the outside. Instead tries to cut back to the late apex and get the switch back. That doesn't work though, and in fact he's now under pressure from Alex Connor, who pulls alongside him in the braking zone at Druids. In the end, though, the places stay the same, and this is kind of what I suspected might be the case. After the early shuffling, it's quite difficult to overtake here at Donington, and neither of these drivers want to take a huge risk. We're only in race number one, not even halfway yet through race number one, and neither of them had an ideal start to the season, really. Josh Skelton scored a place finish in race 2, and that really was his highlight. And Alex Connor, one of those 6 drivers yet to score a point. They're both well up in the points right now though, and they are starting to do battle for this 4th position. It's letting Zane Maloney off the hook a little bit. Down through Paddock Hill Bend again. Alex Connor sees a gap on the inside at Druids. They're being caught as well now by the rapid Chris Lullum, and Chris Lullum is on a real mission here to get to the front. He's clearly got good speed. Has a look at the inside of Skelton there into Graham Hill Bend. That didn't work. That means he's slow on the exit, and that is Lullum's chance to get alongside. He's got the inside line for Surtees, and you don't really want to run around the outside there. Alex Connor agrees with me and backs out of the corner, lets Chris Lullum have it, and so the position will indeed change then with Chris Lullum now into the top 5, would you believe? This is an incredible fight back for the driver that was one of several drivers off on the opening lap, so I suppose having the off early at Paddock Hill Bend, he was at least able to pick his way through some of the other chaos and gain a few places back. But we crucially saw that he did not sustain any damage in first corner shuffle. I think he just ran wide in avoidance, really, of other people going off. Zach O'Sullivan, he's continuing also to head forwards. James Headley is the man in his crosshairs now as they head into Surtees corner. James holding on to 7th place, defending it admirably, but it definitely looks like Zach O'Sullivan's the quicker of the two. Nico Verone, British Formula 3 Championship race winner at Spa-Francorchamps in a slipstreaming thriller last summer. He's also closing in and is in 9th place with Roman Malinsky rounding out the top 10 right now. O'Sullivan looks to the outside of Headley and does more than look, goes right round the outside at Paddock Hill Bend, and Nico Verone tries to go up the inside into Druids and gets the door well and truly slammed in his face, so he thinks, okay, I'll go to the outside instead, and he's the second driver in as many corners to drive around the outside of James Headley. James won't be all that impressed with that, really. The number 57 car losing 2 places to drivers that went round the outside of him. He having come through the Ginetta junior ranks, especially James Headley, will not be used to being overtaken around the outside, so that was all rather unfortunate. With Josh Skelton now, Josh Skelton's got Chris Lullum going up the inside of him into Paddock Hill Bend. That puts Lullum into 4th position. This has been an astonishingly good drive, this from Chris Lullum. It's not over yet because he now has his sights set on that man, the reigning British Formula 4 champion, Zane Maloney, 10 times a race winner last season, including a dominant performance here on the Brands Hatch Indy circuit at the start of the year. But is he any match for Lullum? Lullum, as well, crucially, will now be in clean air for pretty much the first time all race, so perhaps not on this lap, but certainly on the next lap we'll start to see what his genuine pace is. But look, he's pulling away from Josh Skelton corner by corner, and I think this gap is going to continue to shrink as they come across the start-finish line. They will start their 16th lap of the race, and Chris Lullum is just 0.78 of a second behind. Right behind him, though, the battle is still raging here between Josh Skelton, Alex Connor, and Zach O'Sullivan. Skelton in the grey car has, at the moment, 5th position, but Alex Connor and Zach O'Sullivan and Nico Verone and James Headley are all still right there with him, and this queue of cars is getting ever more congested. Graham Hill Bend, and off in front of them has gone. Who was that just, was it a back marker? I think it must have been Christian Mansell. Yes, I saw a Carling car spinning. Thought for a moment that it might have been Marion Kramers, who's still running in 2nd place, remember, but no, it wasn't. It was Christian Mansell, who's laps down to his involvement in the first lap shenanigans. We've looked away from this battle for half a lap. Surely something must have changed. No, I think they're all still in the same order then. Skelton 5th, Connor 6th, O'Sullivan 7th, and Nico Verone 8th. They charge through Paddock Hill Bend once again, approaching the 3/4 race distance now. And it is the tightest battle on track, but the fastest man on track, no doubt about it, well, apart from race leader Luke Browning, is Josh Skelton. Josh Skelton with a 42.0 on his previous lap. Josh Lullum, 41.45, which was quicker than Maloney. He's definitely closing in on the 3rd place driver. There is the gap between the two of them. Quite within striking range yet, but within another lap or so, I think he will be. behind. What's happening? Skelton under increasing pressure now from Alex Connor as they head for Paddock Hill Bend. He defends the inside line. So Alex forced to take the wide line into the turn, and that leaves him a bit vulnerable on the exit to Zach O'Sullivan, who tries to slip the number 51 car up the inside. For Vale, though, and Zach has to stay behind the other who competed in Ginetta Juniors last year with an impressive campaign. I said within a lap we would have Lulham on the tail of Zane Maloney. It's actually taken less than a lap for Chris Lulham to close an 0.8 of a second margin. We're on board now with the one of the fastest drivers on the track. He pulls to the outside of Zane Maloney's car into Paddock Hill Bend, and Zane, I think, is going to have very little he can do to fight this, but fight it he will. They run side by side through Paddock, but Lulham just has so much more grip. Zane Maloney, who clearly is suffering from front-end damage after that contact at the start. Lulham is into third, having been 10th at the end of the opening lap. We expect these sort of performances maybe in the reverse grid second races, but for someone to do this in race number 1, it really is impressive, and it says an awful lot for the youngster that he's been able to bounce back psychologically from he started up at the front of the grid, was off at the first corner. Many a lesser driver would have been in the towel at that point, but he didn't. He kept at it. He's now into a podium place with just a handful of minutes still to go. With the Skelton train, he is about 2 seconds behind Zane Maloney, but has Alex Connor, Zach O'Sullivan, Nico Verone and James Headley still right with him. Seb Prio, by the way, has got himself ahead of Roman Belinsky, so Prio is into the top 10 now after a slightly iffy start to the race, I think it's fair to say. So Seb, driver, as I said, who raced in British Formula 4 a couple of years ago, never won the championship, but he was a race winner in British Formula 4, one of the championship alumni that we've got racing with us in the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy, which continues to give us side-by-side battles wherever you look, because Alex Connor has gone from attacking Josh Skelton to now potentially losing out here to Zach O'Sullivan. I didn't see how this started, but O'Sullivan's up the inside going into Paddock Hill Bend, and there's contact! Oh, that's a shame. Alex Connor is off, and in a big way he's off into the barriers, and I think there may be some discussions about that. That was forceful stuff, and Zach O'Sullivan gets the 6th place, but I think he sustained some front left damage from that as well, and Alex Connor, unsurprisingly, has dived straight for the pit lane, and he will have the chance to get the car repaired. Here we go again. Well, hard to tell from that angle who moved on who, but it's fair to say that O'Sullivan was fully alongside into the corner. You'd be surprised if Alex Connor didn't see him. Well, still can't tell really whether that was... See if we can... Look as though Connor turns into the corner particularly. I think he was trying to leave room, but it thankfully is not for me to say. That will be the job of Dan Blake, the clerk of the course, and he will be one who has to make a judgment call on whether or not that is worthy of a penalty. In calmer places, Luke Browning leading the way, and he has a 4-second, just under 4-second advantage over Marion Kramers at the moment. And netcode, I think, is the blame for the contact that we just saw as well there between Alex Connor and Zach O'Sullivan, which makes perfect sense. It looked like a slightly odd bit of contact that never have intentionally a part of. Luke Browning leads then, 4 seconds clear of Marion Kramers in second. He's nearly 6 seconds ahead of Chris Lulham and getting away from him as well. So Lulham is not likely to improve upon 3rd place. And with Browning leading, it will mean that Luke is able to extend his championship lead as a result of this, if things finish as they are now, which has every appearance of doing so. There's the fight for 4th, though. Zane Maloney has been reeled in again now by Josh Skelton. Because of the Alex Connor and Zach O'Sullivan battle that developed behind Skelton, that left Skelton free to reel in the 4th place driver again. And so this is now the battle. When Skelton was going to go to the inside, but there was a car leaving the pit lane right in front of them, and that really delays Skelton. Up the inside goes Zach O'Sullivan, 2 wheels on the grass into Druids, and that was never likely to work. Sensibly, he picks himself out of the situation, drops back in underneath the rear wing of Josh Skelton. They stay in the positions they were in into that sequence. So only a couple of minutes left on the clock now as well. We're heading into the final few laps of racing. It is a very short lap, 41 seconds, the lap times we're seeing from the leaders. So we're going to get plenty of laps in. We're on the 25th lap now for the race leaders. This battle about to begin the 25th lap. And Josh Skelton, just like that, is back under pressure again now from Zach O'Sullivan. field for Skelton, though. He did all the hard work to catch Maloney, put himself in a position to attack, went to the inside into panic, and there was a slow car coming out of the pit lane, and that is, fortunately, just one of those things. He couldn't do anything about it, had to back off, but the loss of momentum brings O'Sullivan back onto his gearbox. Dipping the wheel onto the grass there, turning into Graham Hill, and both of them are using a lot of runoff area there through Graham Hill. Up some of their track limits warnings now as we get into the final stages of the race. Skelton holding on, but for how much longer? Because O'Sullivan, like Chris Lullum, has been on a real charge through the order. Remember, O'Sullivan had the lead into the first corner before that contact with Zane Maloney. Look at the inside of Skelton, but Skelton moves over in the braking zone there to try and cover the inside line. This is allowing Zane Maloney to pull away once again. He's now the best part of, well, in fact, he's just over 0.8 of a second clear of this trio of cars. Don't count out Nico Verona yet either, the number 37 car running in 7th spot at the moment. And Nico Verona, from Argentina, running as an independent, so he not out there looking to work with any teammates. He just wants to get himself some good results if he can, as he was able to do in a couple of one-off appearances in the British Formula 3 Championship last year. And O'Sullivan, running out of time now, needs to try and make this move if he can. He needs to try and do it quickly. On the last lap, I believe, now I'm being told. So Josh Skelton then under pressure here for this 5th position. He's only got to hang on, though, for just over a mile now. But look at that. Nico Verona goes around the outside, takes advantage of them bottling each other up, and that buys him a ticket to the inside line at Graham Hill Bend. He's late on the brakes. He's over the curb. They just avoid contact. That was good stuff. Brilliant stuff, though, from Luke Browning. He is going to take his 2nd race win of the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy, and he does so in pretty dominant fashion. Marion Kramers comes home in 2nd position. 3rd place, though, one of the drives of the race for sure, Chris Lullum, who will do his championship hopes no harm at all. Then it is, deep breath, Maloney, Skelton, O'Sullivan, Verona. They are 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th, with Seb Priaulx up into 8th place after Alex Connor's late off, of course. Everyone jumps up a position, so Roman Belinsky goes 9th, and Rafa Martins gets himself into the top 10, whilst 11th is James Headley, 12th Jonathan Hoggard, and then Alex Connor in the pit lane. So he's not running at the flag, so it's my understanding that Alex Connor was being taken out of the race by that contact. Is not going to be involved in the reversed grid draw either. Fred Lubin, though, who was classified next, will be. Then it was Mikael Grundtvig, Abby Pulling, Ollie Bierman, Christian Mansell and Kian Jewis. They were all running at the flag. I don't think they all completed 75% race distance, though, so we'll have to wait for official confirmation between the races as to who the drivers eligible for the reverse grid will be. But whoever is deemed to be the last driver running at the flag that also completed 75% race distance will be on the pole position. Confirmation then of the provisional result for round number 3 of the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy. It is a win for Luke Browning, his 2nd race victory of the season, and the championship leader further extends his margin. Marion Kramers gets his first podium of the season, whilst Chris Lullum did a brilliant job to fight back to 3rd place after his first corner off. Zane Maloney faded slightly with damage sustained at the start. He finishes in 4th, whilst Josh Skelton is 5th. Zach O'Sullivan gained lots of ground as well after being by Maloney at the first corner. He finishes in 6th. Nico Verona is a fighting 7th, while Seb Priaulx had a quiet race, but worked his way nicely into 8th place by the flag. Roman Belinsky is 9th, whilst Rafa Martins rounds out the top 10. Outside the top 10, James Hay 11th. Jonathan Hoggard was running at the flag in 12th, albeit 6 laps down. So only 11 cars ended the race on the lead lap. And then the rest of them, even if they were running at the end, I don't think will be classified as official finishers, but you can see them there anyway. Lubin, Grundtvig, Pulling, Bierman, Mansell and Kian Jewis. Nathan de Villiers, sadly the newcomer, didn't even get round the first couple of laps. He was an early retirement from the race in 20th. Well, dramatic stuff. Expected nothing less from our first race, and race 2, remember, is the reverse grid race. So as chaotic as race number 1 was, expect race 2 to be even more so. I'm getting confirmation now that Fred Lubin is going to be our pole sitter. So they've gone for the top 14 technically. He was classified 14th, but I don't think that Alex Connor will be involved in the grid. He was officially 13th at the flag, but was in the pit lane at the time. Luke Browning, by the way, moves on to 62 championship points after the first 3 races. That means he's 21 points clear of Chris Lullum in 2nd and Zach O'Sullivan second. In fact, they're both on 41 points. And then another jump back to Marion Kramers, who moves into fourth position after that second place. And Zane Maloney, it may not have been the podium he was hoping for, but fourth place does at least keep him in the top 5 in the championship. So Browning 62, Lulham and O'Sullivan 41, joint second. That's your gap at the top of the points table. I believe we've got our top 3 drivers ready to go. So we'll start with our race winner then, who will pull into the commentary box, Luke Browning, who gets himself that second victory of the year. Luke, you were leading the championship coming into Brands Hatch. A couple of decent results would have kept you happy. It doesn't get much more decent than that, though, does it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I really enjoy Brands Hatch. It's my favourite track. To be fair, it's one that I think I've had a win in each category I've done in. So it's just, yeah, I've got some really fond memories around there, around the real track, and yeah, that's clearly come into the virtual world as well.
Talk us through the opening laps, because that was always where a lot of the work was likely to be done. It was, as expected, quite a chaotic first couple of corners. What was your view of it all?
Yeah, I mean, it was tough starting on that hill in P1 because you're just sort of the start of the uphill climb. And it's so hard to get the way. I just gave it a little bit too much clutch off, and I give it a bit of wheel spin. If I had 2 or 3 cars around me, and then all the chaos kicked off. I think I was just kind of dodging front wings and rear bumpers there. So yeah, I was quite lucky to get away with it.
Lucky, but then fast. After that point, you made the most of a track that gave you. You executed a brilliant safety car restart, and then it's just about keeping the concentration up, isn't it, for the remaining 15 minutes or so?
Yeah, exactly. I think I always find it a little bit easier once you get in the leads. You can just sort of chill out, control the race, and you don't have to push too hard from then on.
You're not one of those drivers who has their mind start to wander when you're 8 seconds up the road from everyone else.
A few spectators interest me. You got the. No, I'm only kidding. No, yeah, you've got to stay fully focused, especially with it being such a short track. I think you've got must have upwards of 20 cars, so you've got lap cars coming at you left, right, and centre. So you got to be careful.
Thoughts about race 2, reversed grid race as well. You're going to be starting somewhere down in about 13th or 14th, so you might have some more front and rear wings to avoid, I think, in the first few laps.
Yeah, for sure. It's just going to be all about missing the damage, really, just trying to limit the contact as much as possible, and then hopefully on pace will take me a little bit further up the order.
Best of luck for that second race. Congratulations on your second win of the season. Who knows, we might be talking to you again later on in the evening.
Thank you very much.
Luke Browning, then your race winner in round number 3 of the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy. Next, we move across to the second step of the podium, and a new visitor to the podium. It's the first podium of the season for Marion Kramers. Congratulations on the podium. You had the lead for a while, but Luke just managed to get past you, and he escaped up the road a bit, didn't he?
Thank you. Yeah, definitely good to be on the podium, but I just got a bit lucky at the start, to be fair. Got into the lead, and then I saw Luke was behind me. I knew what his pace was around here, so didn't make it too hard on him. Just let him go by and try to do some solid laps.
And your laps were very solid indeed, actually. I think your fastest lap was something like the second or third fastest lap of the race. So you've got good speed around Brands Hatch. Is it a track that you have much iRacing experience on?
I don't have much iRacing experience in general. I just started a month ago, and my setup is not the most expensive one, I think, not the best one at least. And but it's good. I did some laps with my team around here with the Carlin boys, and tried to be as prepared as possible, which worked out nicely because not only me, but O'Sullivan's really quick as well.
You're not a driver that I think many people over here in the UK maybe are familiar with, but I think we're going to be, aren't you? You're going to be racing hopefully in the 2020 British Formula 4 Championship with Carlin, or into the top 5 now in this championship as well. So I think you're gaining yourself quite a lot of fans at the moment.
Hopefully, I've done a lot of karting in my days, and I've done pretty well there, but I don't have much experience racing in England. So hopefully I can get some fans out there and have them support me at the first race when we finally go racing.
Performances like that, I think you'll be welcomed with open arms into the British Formula 4 Championship. Congratulations on your podium, and hopefully more of the same in race 2.
Thank you. Hopefully.
We'll wait and see. Race number 2 coming up in a little while. But before we move on, let's have a word with our final podium finisher. And this is the chat I've been looking forward to the most. Because, Chris Lulham, I did not expect to see you on the podium about halfway around that first lap. And I think it's fair to say you probably weren't expecting it either.
Oh, no, for sure. I think I was around like P17 coming out of turn 1. But a lot of people picked up damage, and that helped me get through quickly.
That sounded a lot easier than I'm sure it was, because it was a job just to stay out of trouble. In a way, though, the off you had at Paddock Hill Bend at the start kind of kept you behind some of the other carnage, didn't it?
Oh yeah, that was able to avoid a crash at turn 2 and turn 3, simply because I was that far back. But obviously, I would have rather been at the front where I should have been.
Well, especially no doubt since Luke was able to take the victory. That means he's already 21 points ahead of you in the championship. Not something I'm sure you wanted to hear, but race 2's coming up. You'll be starting ahead of him on the grid. So what are your hopes and expectations for the reverse grid race?
Honestly, the main aim will be to survive and just gather like a top 5, top 6, just get some points in. Because their lap 1s have been pretty big chaos so far. And I assume it'll be the same.
Well, I'm not going to argue with you there. I think you might be right. But if you can pick your way through it again, get some more points. I know it's early in the season, but those points are still really valuable, aren't they?
Yeah, for sure. It's just going to be consistency for now.
Well, best of luck for race number 2, and congratulations on your second podium.
Thank you.
Lulham there, then rounding out your podium finishes for round number 3 of the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy. And that is just about it now, I think, for race number 1. But don't forget, race number 2 will be coming your way in about 15 minutes' time or so. The second server, I believe, is up. So it is almost time for us to start moving through into the second race preparations, the reverse grid race. Not one that you'll want to miss, that is for sure. So we're going to leave you then with a few minutes of peace and quiet before the second race gets underway. Don't go anywhere, though. Don't go leaving us, because we've got plenty more close quarters British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy action coming your way. Before we head into our short break, though, let's have a look at a quick show reel we've been sent in from Momentum Social, who are a digital social agency helping the British Formula 4 media team with both the iRacing Trophy and the Real World Championship as well as a host of other high-profile clients worldwide. And here's some of the stuff that they've been getting up to. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brands Hatch Indy circuit and round number 2, race number 4 of the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy, which is only a few minutes away. The cars are out on track in their mid-session practice session. It's just a 10 or 15-minute session to allow everyone to get into the new server. So you're not missing any racing, don't worry. This is just a free practice session. The reversed grid race 2 will be coming up, though, within 10 minutes or so. Race 1, if you've only just joined us, was won pretty convincingly by Luke Browning, but he had to do some overtaking in that race. Started from pole, slipped back at the start, had to way back through, overtaking Marion Kramers, the eventual runner-up in the race, for the lead about a third of the way into the race, and disappearing up the road to take his second victory in a row, because remember, he won this equivalent race, the reverse grid race at Donington Park last time out, and all of this gives Luke Browning a 21-point cushion. We head into the second race of the day. My name is Andy McEwen. Alongside me in preparation for race number 2 is Damien Meaden, excuse me. How long have I known you? Damien Meaden, who is here to talk all things British Formula 4. And Damien, that first race, I think, kind of had everything we expected from it. There was a bit of chaos at the start, but once things settled down, some good racing.
Oh, that first lap was just the most dramatic thing, wasn't it? Everywhere you looked, there was an incident, there was somebody going off, there was close quarters racing. It did settle down a little bit, and then it all got incredibly lively again, and it was just overtaking action everywhere you look. It was fantastic.
It was brilliant stuff, wasn't it? And Luke Browning really starting already in this early part of the championship to kind of assert his authority. Didn't get a great start, but a race in which he could have legitimately settled for second and just taken the points. Was going for the win. He made a decisive move to take the lead away, and now is reaping the early championship points rewards.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's two things that have been really key to this early season form for Luke Browning. First and foremost, he is just absolutely rapid. I mean, his progress in British F4 last year was evident for all to see. Took a couple of race wins, took a handful of podiums, and I think I'm right in saying his average race win came from about 6th or 8th on the grid, something like that last year. So he's definitely used to doing it the difficult way. And the other thing is, of course, that he's very experienced on iRacing as well. So those two things coming together are really paying dividends for him at the moment. And it'll be interesting to see how much progress he can make in this second race, which is, of course, reverse grid.
Which, well, he's going to have to do some more overtaking, but that can be done, it seems, even though we're at a track, Damien, that I don't think many of us expected to see a huge amount of overtaking at, because as competitive as this grid is, everyone running, very similar lap times, it's a narrow track, tough to pass here, and yet a few people, like Luke Browning, and particularly Chris Lulham, really showed that actually, if you're decisive with your moves, you can make your way through the pack.
Yeah, in theory, this is one of the tougher tracks to overtake on. Obviously, as you've mentioned, the grid's incredibly close. They're only split by a few tenths in qualifying to begin with. And then you have to consider how short a lap it is. In 40 seconds or so, you're not going to make up more than a few tenths a lap. So, as a result, that does make it pretty difficult to be able to get into the overtaking window, if you like, around here. But clearly nobody told Chris Lulham that in the last race. Neither Zach O'Sullivan. Both had dramas at turn 1, both fought through brilliantly. Like you said to Chris in his interview, you would not have predicted a podium after turn 1, but I think the safety car was helpful, but I think that was barely half the story. Some fantastic overtakes, had some great pace, and that whole race I was keeping one eye on what was going on track and the other eye on the timing tower as he just sort of gradually climbed, and it'd be interesting if it had been an even longer race to see how long that would have gone on for.
Whether or not he could have maybe caught Marion Kramers, who came home in second place in the end. I don't think any of us, though, are giving this championship away to either Luke Browning or Chris Lulham just yet, because although they've kind of been the pace setters in these first few races we've had, we do anticipate that as the season goes on, other drivers are going to start appearing at the front of the field, much as we would see in the real-world British Formula 4 Championship. Those with less experience at the start of the year, 9 times out of 10, you get into the second half of the season and they're up there. And I think it'll be a similar story here with those that maybe are a bit lacking in sim racing experience. Going to learn, though, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. It does really closely mirror the real world championship, as you were saying. For the most part, British F4 is quite often a 2-year exercise. You come in for the first year, you learn the cars, you learn the circuits, you get a bit of experience. Most of them will have just stepped up from karts, and although the car does handle a little bit like a big car, it is a big step to acclimatise to. And then the idea is in the second season, like Sebastian Alvarez did last year and Josh Skelton did last year, you put all of that learning together, you stay with the same team, you come back and you have a good crack at it. Obviously some drivers, like Zane Maloney last year, are able to get a little bit ahead of that trend and go in the first year. Lots of things that count towards that, but fair play to them for doing so. And I think it's going to be the same in this as well. We're going to have some drivers who really know iRacing, who are at the front to begin with, and then I think there are some who might have recently bought simulators because of the situation, or might not necessarily use iRacing as much. And the more they're practicing, the more they're getting into it, the quicker they'll become. So I think by the end of the season, it's going to be even more breathtaking than it is now. So we might need to put a health warning on these.
No, I'm struggling to keep up with everything going on at the moment, let alone as we get deeper into the championship and it gets even more competitive. But that is why we're all here. That's what we all wanted to see, and it's definitely what the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy is delivering. And I think it's catching a lot of people's attentions as well. This is the second race event of this 7 race meeting season, and already the social media interaction and the general attention that this is receiving has all been really positive, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been really fantastic, and it's great to see so many people getting involved with it, even when it is virtual racing and not the real thing, which of course is why many of them were following the social media accounts in the first place. It's been great to see that amount of embracing of virtual sim racing going on, which is brilliant. It's great for sim racing, it helps grow the scene. I must admit, I'm a bit of a convert. I really didn't follow iRacing or virtual racing at all until this current coronavirus situation, but now I find myself tuning into them most nights and making a mental note already of particular series and channels that I want to keep an eye on afterwards. So it's great for the growth. It's been great for us to see so much engagement, and this whole iRacing Trophy exercise was a bit of a toe in the water for us for esports, and it's definitely given us food for thought for the future as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be brilliant to see this potentially continue on into the future, because I definitely think there's a lot of potential there. But thanks, Damien, for joining us. We may speak to you again later on in the evening, but if not, enjoy race 2. Kind of think you will do.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to do what you did to me last week and end by making you predict who's going to win a race. Go for it.
Oh, damn you. Right, okay. Well, we've got Fred Lubin up there at the front of the grid, and handily the grid has appeared right in front of us as well. So let's have a look. Jonathan Hoggard, front row of the grid. I think he's definitely got a shot at this. Jonathan Hoggard, a quick driver. He's very unlucky so far in the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy. So, Damien, I'm going to go with Jonathan Hoggard, who starts on the front row alongside Fred Lubin. James Headley and Rafa Martin share row 2 ahead of Roman Belinsky and Seb Prio. Nico Verone and Zach O'Sullivan, whilst Josh Skelton and Zane Maloney round out the top 10. Then our top 3 from race 1, Chris Lullen, Marion Kramers and Luke Browning are 11th, 12th and 13th. And then those that didn't get to the end. Alex Connor was out of luck. He'll have a point to prove. Mikael Grundtvig was disqualified from the first qualifying session, so he had a lacklustre race in the end. So too did Abby Pulling, Ollie Bierman, Christian Mansell and Kian Jewis out on the opening lap in race 1. But we know how quick the former champion is. He will line up 19th on the grid with Nathan de Villiers, hopefully this time making it onto the track at the tail end of the field. Lights then are out. We're away and racing for round number 4 of the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy. Fred Lubin and Jonathan Hoggard make up the front row of the grid, and Lubin gets off the line. Well, unlike Browning from race number 1, it will be the pole sitter that leads into Paddock Hill Bend this time. And do we get them all safely through? 1 or 2 running wide. Luke Browning, I believe, has just run wide into the gravel further back, and there is a lot of shuffling going on now as they head into Druids Corner. Bits of bodywork go flying. One car's got to know. That's Zach O'Sullivan. Zach O'Sullivan, that's a shame. One of our expected front runners in trouble already up at Druids Corner, but he gets back underway and continues on the opening lap of the race. So Jonathan Hoggard then leads the way. Fred Lubin is in second position, right there with him as they go out onto the pit straight at the end of lap number 1, and into the pit lane already is Zach O'Sullivan, Christian Mansell, Nathan de Villiers. I don't think he ever got into the race either, as the rest of the pack head into Paddock Hill Bend. Now I'm seeing all contact at Paddock, and Alex Connor's involved. There's a car spinning around. That's Ollie Bierman that's made contact with him through the first corner, and that was a close call through the first turn there. Ollie Bierman, though, losing ground hand over fist as a result. Right, at the front of the field, Hoggard has got the lead. I'll apologise, my pictures broke up for a minute there. I didn't see how he did it, but Fred Lubin under pressure now from Nico Verone, who's going to go through on the inside into second position. Now, if memory serves me rightly, it was a reversed grid British Formula 3 race that Verone won at Spa last year, so he knows how to win this kind of race in this sort of machinery, and he's into second place now, the inside of Fred Lubin with the fastest man on the track. Perhaps we shouldn't be surprised, really. The reigning champion of the British Formula 4 Championship, Zane Maloney, who's at the inside for third place now, backs out of it, didn't want to risk any contact there because he, remember, damaged that front left corner at turn 1, lap 1 in race 1. He needs to make sure that he stays out of trouble here because with a healthy car, he might have the pace to go up there and get himself his first victory of the season. Through the final couple of corners they go, through clearways, out into Clark Curve, and Zane Maloney is in the slipstream of Fred Lubin now as they come across the start-finish line, and the Barbadian driver is surely about to try and launch a challenge for third place into Paddock Hill Bend. There's a gap on the inside. Does he go for it? Yes, he does! Brilliant stuff from Zane Maloney. You wouldn't think he could stop the car. He was that much later on the brakes than the man he was overtaking, but he is into P3 now, and Fred Lubin off the podium already. Contact, that's Chris Lullum. Chris Lullum is just about going to avoid the contact in front of him. Luke Browning, though, I think. It was Luke Browning, it was the championship leader who instigated it. Luke Browning has big damage, and this has big points ramifications. The man who has won 2 of the first 3 races of the season has front and rear damage and is surely going to have to make his way into the pit lane for repairs. And Luke Browning looks as though he's unlikely to score championship points now here at Brands Hatch in race number 2. There's another car going slowly in front of them there. Not quite sure who that was, trying to stay out of the way. But Browning, well, does not come for the pit lane. That's interesting because that car is certainly not healthy and he's clearly not going very quickly because Abby Pulling and the recovering Ollie Bierman both drive straight past him in a straight line, and now he's got James Headley behind him in the 67 car, who I think was recovering from a spin possibly. Let's see what happened here then. So this is Luke Browning, and that is Lewis, is it, in front of him? He just gets into the back. No, it's the 67 car. Sorry, that is Headley that he hit then. So well, that was all a bit clumsy, you have to say, but to rear contact is usually frowned upon by the stewards. So we'll see whether or not any penalties are dished out there. Back to the on board here with Mikael Grumpy. Yeah, that was... had nowhere to go, did he? Ran straight into Luke Browning, and that's what gave Luke the rear bodywork damage, but the front end damage absolutely sustained by running into the back of James Headley, and Luke Browning has been given black and white flag as a result. So that I believe is a warning rather than an actual penalty. Skelton and Alex Connor have also been given a black and white flag for the contact that they had at the start of the race. While Jonathan Hoggard leads the way, Nico Verone is second, and Zane Maloney is in third place. So Maloney ahead of Lubin, as we saw. Marion Kramer's rounding out the top 5, and Chris Lullum is in 6th position. So Lullum has made the best progress. Well, he and Kramer's, I suppose. They started together down in about 12th and 13th on the grid. Kramer's is now 5th and Lullum in 6th, but they're about 6.5 seconds off the race leaders at the moment, who are getting themselves closer together. Jonathan Hoggard and Nico Verone, who raced together for a select few rounds of the British Formula 3 Championship last year. Jonathan Hoggard, a championship contender though. Verone with a couple of one-off appearances at Silverstone and Spa, but now Verone is right behind the leader, 0.2 of a second between them as they cross the start-finish line onto lap number 8 of the race, and Verone pulls to the outside, trying to force the race leader to take the tight defensive line into Paddock Hill Bend, which he did, and that means he's slow off the exit of the corner. The inside is covered again by Hoggard. Verone then likes this outside line. He made up some places here late on in the previous race by going around the outside, but doesn't quite get to the inside at Graham Hill Bend this time, and it stays Hoggard, Verone and Maloney, the top 3. Maloney on the previous lap was not quite as quick as Verone in front of him, but I think with the top 2 racing between each other now, we are probably going to see this become a 3-way fight before too much longer. They're already nearly 3 seconds clear of Lubin, though, so Lubin is definitely the only one in the top 9 who is not in the 41-second bracket, so that's definitely going to put him danger of losing more places here, I think, before the end of the race. This, meanwhile, is Chris Lullum right behind Marion Kramer's, so these were... Well, Kramer's second in the previous race, Lullum was third. has very much brought himself into early championship contention, I think, after that podium. He's on 24 points. Browning was on 62, the championship leader, but Browning is not going to score any points from this race, potentially. He's in 11th spot at the moment, limping around with a wounded car, just hoping that one more driver in front of him retires to put him into the top 10, but he's not going to score big points from this race, whilst his nearest championship competitors very much could. The line we go then. Hoggard leading the way by 0.3 of a second. It's then a further 0.6 back to Maloney in third. It looks as though they settle down like this. Maloney is no quicker than the top two. It's only really when Hoggard starts to defend Maloney is able to close in. Down the order, by the way, Alex Connor, who I said would have a point to prove in this race after being involved in that contact with Zach O'Sullivan late on in race number 1. He set the fastest lap of 41.18 for Alex Connor. Connor down in 7th place, 2.5 seconds behind Chris Lullen, but at least on for a few more championship points this time around, potentially. We only have 11 cars left on the lead lap. Nathan de Villiers is 12th, though, in his debut, as the leaders, nose to tail, work their way across the start-finish line again. 10 laps in the book, and Verone once again goes to the outside at Paddock Hill Bend. That can be done, but it's a risky move, and if it doesn't work, you lose so much speed on the exit of the corner that the car behind, in this instance, say Maloney, is able to close in and attack for your position. So Maloney starting to look assertive now in the wing mirrors of the second place man Nico Verone, and Winnie is definitely a bit quicker there out of Graham Hill Bend through Surtees. Clearways is a possible overtaking opportunity, but it's not. It's definitely a place that you risk making contact at if you start diving up the inside. Insensibly, Dean stays in third place. Given information as well that Nathan de Villiers in 12th place was a pit lane starter. He missed the start, and that probably means that he's missed quite a lot of the early contact that some others were involved in, although it was definitely a cleaner first lap this time around. They then all survived lap 1, took a deep breath, thought, right, we're through the worst of it now, and then all proceeded to drive into each other on lap 2. But generally speaking, although we've lost a lot of drivers, they actually settle into racing. We have seen some great wheel-to-wheel action without contact. The evening has gone on. We are just over a third of the way, though, through this second race, round number 4 of the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy, with Jonathan Hoggard looking for his first race victory of the season. And Hoggard is languishing down the order somewhat in about 11th place in the points. He hasn't scored anywhere near as many points as he would have wanted to. He's only scored, in fact, in one of the 3 races so far, which was a 5th place finish in race 1 at Donington, but he was then caught up in early contact in race 2. He was caught up in early contact race 1 here at Brands Hatch, and I definitely sees this as almost a must-win race, really, because with just 10 points scored, that puts him 52 off the championship leader, but you get 25 for a race win, so he could potentially halve that gap if he can hang on to the race victory here today. Ahead of him, actually, is Luke Browning, amongst others, about to go a lap down. So Luke Browning is still in 11th place, and he's 18 seconds behind Kian Dewis. So he's not going to gain any more places on merit. He is simply hoping that others retire and maybe give him a point or two before the end of the race, rather than pit and himself multiple laps down as he waits for repairs. He's doing his best to try and make something of the race himself. Or with Hoggard as he picks his way through some more lapped traffic there. The car he's about to put a lap down, I think, is Christian Mansell in the number 21 Carling car. Christian, the Australian, to the outside. He's staying well out of the way, but Jonathan Hoggard there really wanted to try and get a slipstream from the marker. So almost ran into the back of him. Then he runs wide at Paddock, and Verone now smells an opportunity once again. Gets to the inside at Druid, goes to the outside, draws himself almost fully level through the middle of the corner. Can't quite get up the inside. He really tried it there. He had 2 wheels on the grass momentarily, but isn't able to complete the pass. Now, Zane Maloney, what's happened to Maloney? Has he lost connection? I think he has, hasn't he? Now, that's big news, because if he loses connection completely, Zane Maloney well find himself out of the race here. He certainly dropped back from the top two, who are now closer than ever, and there's almost contact there as the top 2 going to Paddock Hill Bend. Nico Verone goes to the outside on the way in, the inside on the way out, but Hoggard saw it coming. He's just able to jink across in front of Nico Verone in the 37 car and hold on to the advantage. But Verone looks the quicker, and it's Hoggard that is making more mistakes here than the Argentinian driver behind him, who is one of the 3 independents that we have racing in the championship. Now, Zane Maloney is being classified a lap down, so I think he has officially lost connection, and that means that Zane Maloney essentially is out of the race, and that crucially puts Luke Browning into 10th position. So Luke Browning now, championship leader, is scoring a point, and this is why he was determined to stay out there, even though his car was wounded, because there was always a chance that others were going to drop by the wayside as the race went on. So Browning been involved in that contact early on in the race up at Druid's Corner, and now find himself in the points. There he is, the walking wounded Luke Browning, down the hill on the 16th lap of the race for him. He's on the 17th lap, coming towards its conclusion, but Luke Browning knows how to put a championship together. Luke, who formerly raced in Ginetta Juniors before debuting in British Formula 4 last year with Richardson Racing, he did have 2 race wins, including a win here on the Brands Hatch Indy circuit, albeit in sort of wet, dry conditions. He's returning with Fortec this year for title assault in the championship. Definitely going to be one to watch, I think, based on the pace we've seen from him thus far in the iRacing Trophy. Connor, meanwhile, is into 5th position now, and 1.8 seconds behind Marion Kramers, but not quite so far ahead of Fred Lubin. Fred Lubin is right there with him, so the 2 teammates here play, fighting over the position right now that Alex Connor inherits. Alex Connor, ardent teammate, not quite nose to tail, but only a few car lengths between them as they go through paddock. There's Lubin. He was the pole sitter for this race, so he's faded down to 6th, but does appear to have settled in now. He's not losing any more time. He's staying quite nicely behind his teammate in front, and they're working together well. They are not quite as quick as the cars in front of them, but they're sort of matching, if not faster, than the cars that are a few seconds behind. Look, by 7th place Abby Pulling, so it looks as though they should be able to stay where they are. Roman Belinsky, I'm being told, the wall at paddock a few laps ago, and we believe that was something to do with gearbox issues as well. So we're going to see a replay, I think, possibly of this was Belinsky. Oh, it wasn't at paddock; it was at Clearways. Big spin. Saves it though, but we believe possible gearbox issues have taken Belinsky out after that. So Roman Belinsky, retirement, 4 laps down at the moment, sat in the pit lane waiting repairs. To the leaders though, and does seem to have settled into a bit of a rhythm now, because Verone can get close to Jonathan Hoggard, especially at this part of the track with a slipstream across the start-finish line, but he is definitely struggling to pull out and make the overtake stick. So Hoggard maybe now knows where the attack is likely to come from, and it's up to Verone now to think of something else to try and surprise the race leader. We're on the 21st lap. We completed 28 laps in race number 1, so we would expect a similar, albeit slightly slower pace in this second race. We should get a similar number of laps in. And Hoggard see this checkered flag soon enough. It would be a first podium of the season for him, and of course therefore a first race victory. Nico Verone might still have something to say about this. Maybe he's just sitting back and eating. We heard a few drivers at Donington saying that the tyre wear over a 20-minute race is pretty extreme, especially in a circuit like this one that works those front and rear tyres so hard. The front tyres, because you've got an awful lot of corners in a pretty tight space. You don't really get much time to breathe, the front tyres, and the rear tyres, because there's quite a lot of accelerating out of tight corners. You think of Druids, Graham Hill Bend, Clearways. It's very easy to spin the rear tyres and wear them out. So tyre wear is a factor. Maybe Verone trying to save something for the final part of the race. Abby Pulling now. She is in 7th place and about 2.8 seconds behind the Alex Connor and Fred Lubin pair, who in fact themselves have separated a bit now, so it's really just Lubin that she's chasing. And on this lap, it looks as though she is gaining slightly. She's got a car in front which is laps down. That is James Headley, 13 laps down in the 67 car. And Jewis also now seems to have headed back into the pit lane. Lots of damage for Kian Jewis, and I think we're going to see what happened through Surtees. Seeing down Luke Browning there, and he just gets it all wrong and heavily into the tyre wall for Kian Jewis. struggling a little bit, I think, to get used to this whole iRacing thing is Kieran. We know how rapid he is in real life. Struggling a bit for pace and consistency right now, though. Barone isn't, though. He's got the pace. He's consistent in that he's been spending most of the race staring at the back of Jonathan Hoggard's car, but this time he might have gone at the inside into Druid's corner. Has he? Yes, he has. They're going to bang wheels. They do bang wheels through the apex, and Barone goes through. Nico Barone has got the race lead away. It was forceful, it was firm, but I think it was fair, and Barone now tries to pull away. Jonathan Hoggard will not be happy, though. He was on course for his first victory of the season, and he runs wide out of Graham Hill Bend as he tries to charge back after the Argentinian driver in front of him, but it is car 37 for the first time this year that leads the way in the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy. Nico Barone is already checking out as well. I wonder if maybe there was some suspension damage done to either car in the little bit of wheel banging they did. Doesn't look like any damage has been done, certainly to Barone's car. He is on a real mission, pulling away from everybody else. He is a clear race leader now. Barone leads then, Hoggard second. We're watching Nathan de Villiers here, dicing with Browning. Villiers has moved ahead. That was back into 9th place, crucially. So I was about to make the point before it all kicked off for the lead that Luke Browning had got himself up another place into 9th. Well, sadly, he can't really defend for anyone that catches him. So Luke Browning has to let Nathan de Villiers through. Whilst the lead battle continues, because it doesn't look as though Jonathan Hoggard's letting Barone go here, this man, Chris Lulham, is starting to catch them as well. On the previous lap and on this lap, he's fractionally quicker than the race leaders. So Chris Lulham, he's got a back marker in front of him, and then the top two, ready on for a second, third place finish of the night, and with Browning out of the race, this could have real ramifications in the championship. Remember that Chris Lulham, coming into this race, was 21 points behind Browning. Well, if he finishes third, he scores 15. If he finishes second, he scores 18. If he wins the race, he takes the championship lead. So this is big stuff here for Chris Lulham. He's running out of time, though, because we are into the final few minutes of the race. Lots of traffic ahead there. Luke Browning doing his best to stay out of the way. He's going to be caught before the end of the race as well, I think, by Christian Mansell. The next car in front of Lulham is Christian Mansell, and that Carling car could steal the last championship point away from our points leader, Luke Browning. He goes a lap down to Lulham. That won't bother him too much, though. Christian Mansell has eyes only for Luke Browning, and Browning, I don't think, is going to be able to hold him off. Down the back straight they go, and they're almost together now. Lulham goes through, but Christian Mansell surely is going to simply whistle past the wounded number 11 car in front of him. Clearways out onto the pit straight again. He should have more straight line speed, more downforce through the corners, and yeah, Luke Browning just can't defend it to the inside, but through goes Mansell, and Browning is back out of the points now. That gives extra significance to the charge that Chris Lulham is on. If he could get any higher up the order, that would further shrink the gap at the top of the championship table. Leader then, Barone down the hill. Jonathan Hoggard just 0.6 of a second behind him. Look as though this is likely to change, but there are battles further back that are definitely going to change. Abby Pulling, for example, is catching Fred Lubin rapidly by almost a second a lap. Here she is. This is the battle for 6th place now. Fred Lubin has been leading in the early part of the race, sort of stabilised in the middle portion. Now maybe you suspect tyre wear could be playing a factor. Abby Pulling coming through onto what we believe is going to be the final lap, and she might yet be able to get 6th position away here before the flag. Into the kill bend they go. And Abby can't quite get close enough there. Her best finish so far is 6th place in the season opener at Donington Park. So if she can get into this 6th place, it would equal her season best. Final time, though, Nico Barone is heading through Clearways and Clark Curve, and he is about to see a very welcome sight because the checkered flag is waiting for Nico Barone. He becomes the 3rd different winner from 4 races in the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy and takes the checkered flag in style here at Brands Hatch, with Jonathan Hoggard a valiantly fought 2nd place. But in the end, the pressure told, and Barone was able to get through. Chris Lulham gets another 3rd place finish, though, and he will definitely now establish himself as Luke Browning's nearest rival as we head to Silverstone next week. Aaron Kramer's had a solid night too. He'll be up there points-wise. 4th place for him in this race, whilst Alex Connor gets some retribution for his non-finish in the previous race with 5th place in this one. Fred Lubin is 6th, Abby Pulling 7th, so that didn't change, but they were only a 10th of a second apart, so virtually together at the end of the 20-minute race, with Ollie Beerman 8th. Nathan de Villiers comes across the line in 9th, scores points on his debut as Nathan de Villiers, the South African driver, who will see out for the remainder of the season, whilst Christian Mansell is 10th. The drivers enjoy their donuts up at the top of the hill, and I know they haven't stopped off at one of the fast food vendors at Brands Hatch. They have decided that's the place they want to celebrate their various results, even those that didn't finish right at the sharp end, blowing off some steam at the end of a very intense night of racing. The results here then for race number 2, and it is Nico Verone after a race-long duel with Jonathan Hoggard, who gets the better of him to win the race. Jonathan Hoggard comes home in 2nd, with Chris Lullum in 3rd. Marion Kramers is 4th place, with Alex Connor rounding out the top 5. Then Fred Lubin and Abby Pulling, Ollie Beerman and Nathan de Villiers, and Christian Mansell making that late move himself ahead of Luke Browning, takes the final championship point. Browning comes home in 11th. Kian Jewis was not running at the flag, so I think 12th will go officially to Josh Skelton, then James Headley. And Zach O'Sullivan was the last driver running at the flag. Not running at the end of the race were Kian Jewis, Zane Maloney, Roman Belinsky, Mikael Grundvig, Rafa Martins, and Seb Prio. A particular shame that we lost Zane Maloney there from what would have been, I think, a titanic three-way fight for the win in these stages, but connection issues, we think, took the reigning British Formula 4 champion out of play. And what does that mean for the championship? Well, provisionally, a 21-point cushion for Luke Browning comes down to just 6 points, with Chris Lullum's podium place there, putting him onto 56 points, Browning the leader on 62. So 6 points in it between the two teammates, with Zach O'Sullivan 3rd and Marion Kramers 4th on 36 points, just a point ahead of Nico Verone on 35. So thanks to Damien Medium, who is much handier with a calculator than I am. He has worked out the point standings then as we head away from Brands Hatch and a little bit further up north to Silverstone for our next 2 races. So that is how the championship stands. It's going to continue to twist and turn. I mean, if you joined us for race 1 and at the end of the race you saw the big cushion that Luke Browning had built up, you might have thought that, you know, he was starting to establish himself as a clear favourite. But as myself and Damien Meaden said between the races, we're not handing this to him just yet. He's going to have to work for it. We still have 10 more races to go in the championship, and so it's going to continue to twist and turn, I think, as the season goes on. Let's bring in our podium finishers, shall we? Then we'll start with our race winner, Nico Verone. Race-long battle that he had with Jonathan Hoggard. It was a first win of the year for Nico. Nico, congratulations. A brilliant drive, a brilliant battle with Jonathan. Did you enjoy it as much as we enjoyed watching it?
Hi guys, yeah, it was a fantastic race starting from P7. I could manage the first laps to get into P4. Then there was an accident in front of me. I could avoid it, and then, well, it was a brilliant battle with Jonathan all the way to the finish. We were very, very similar on the pace, and well, I studied where to pass him some laps, and well, after the turn 1, I could manage to overtake him, and then into turn 2 I could get the inside line, and then take the victory.
It looked almost like backed off a little bit a few minutes from the end. Was that just to save the tyres and maybe have one last attack in the final few laps?
Well, I was pushing all the way, all the race. I didn't manage the tires. I was like always trying to overtake, because here in Brands Hatch it's really difficult to overtake, and behind another car you lose downforce. So I was pushing all the way into the race, and I could how to say it, I could take the victory in the last 3 laps, but if I could do it in the first lap, it would be better.
Well, it was more entertaining for us, though, watching you battle with him throughout the race. It's fair to say Donington Park last week didn't go particularly well for you. You got some points, but not that many. Brands Hatch has been a lot better, and you're now into the top 5 in the championship. So you think that you can be a championship contender as we go through the rest of the season?
Oh yes, Donington wasn't too good for me. Some contacts on the first lap that bring my race, but then today in the first race,
I don't know, in the first lap, there was a big accident, so I couldn't avoid it, and I finished P7. And okay, now in race 2 it was better with the win. So yeah, I think it's very close. There's so much level. It's very very tight. You see on the qualifying, but I think yeah, if we have some good races and we can like take points every race, I think we can be championship contenders.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you, Nico, for joining us, and it was a brilliant race victory, and we look forward to seeing you again next time at Silverstone.
Okay, guys, thank you, and very good job with the coverage. I was watching it, so it was really great.
Oh, thank you very much, Nico. We'll have you back anytime. Right, thanks then
Thank
to
you,
our
bye.
race winner, Nico Verone. Well done on the race win. Second place in that race, he says, having forgotten already, was Jonathan Hoggard. So we'll welcome him into the commentary box next to have a chat. Jonathan, looked for a while like you might have been on for the race win, but Nico just wouldn't leave you be, would he? And eventually he found a way through.
Yeah, I mean, quite fortunate starting off P2 in the reverse grid race. You know, got a good start and then managed to get in the lead quite early on. I think I knew I wasn't quite fast enough to win the race, so it was just a case of trying to hold them back for as long as possible. But, you know, unfortunately, he did manage to pull off a good move and get into the lead.
Yeah, there was a little bit of contact as well. It was hard to tell from where we were standing that was enough to do any damage, but you did seem to drop back again straight after the contact. So did that maybe just knock something out of kilter?
Yeah, I think there was just a bit of wheel-to-wheel contact. Just put me in that air a little bit and lost me a couple of temps. But you know, I doubt I would have been able to pass him anyway. I think it took him quite a while to get past me. So you know, it's so hard to pass around Brands Indy.
Bit of an all-or-nothing season for you so far, hasn't it? You had that top 5 at Donington Park, then a non-scoring race 2. Kind of the reverse this time around, but your first podium means you've got some momentum now going to Silverstone.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a tricky one, being caught up in some incidents or having a bit of bad luck. Maybe not quite being there on qualifying, but yeah, no. Hopefully, we can carry the momentum forward and have a good rest of the season.
That's something that you'll be looking to do a bit more practice of, maybe as the year goes on, sort of the qualifying simulations, because it's so valuable, isn't it, to get that track position from the word go?
Yeah, definitely. I think I struggle a little bit with the setup we're using, the baseline setup. So I might have to do a couple more laps trying to get my head around that, and then try and work from there.
All right, well, best of luck for Silverstone anyway. Hopefully we'll see you back on that podium again. But congratulations for the second place here at Brands Hatch.
Thank you.
Hoggard, then your second place finisher, and rounding out the podium in the end was Chris Lulham, who we spoke to after race 1. We'll speak to him again though after race 2, because it was a slightly less spectacular drive maybe this time around, but still points scored, Chris, and with Luke Browning not scoring, now only 6 points behind him in the championship.
Yeah, no, it was. I honestly didn't expect to finish that high up, but hey, it's just consistency again. I think paying off.
And good accident avoidance again, I think, in the first few laps, because of course you had to start deep in the field, and quickly, really, you seemed to pick your way through it into a top position.
Yeah, it was just avoiding incidents again. That was quite a few close calls, turn 2 mainly, and just keeping your nose clean. That pays off later in the race once you have superior pace.
You're someone with extensive karting experience, but the one bit of British Formula 4 racing you've done was at Silverstone last year, so you've got to be feeling even more confident going into rounds 5 and 6 next week.
Yeah, for sure. I know the track a bit better than Brands. Brands is probably one of my weaker tracks. But yeah, I think it'll be really close again at Silverstone National. Another short track. But it's going to be good racing.
That slipstream is going to be pretty insane, isn't it? I think we're going to be in for 2 really close races.
Oh yeah, there'll be good battles amongst the faster drivers for sure.
Very much looking forward to it. You are second place in the championship heading to Silverstone, so best of luck next time out, and some more good points I'm sure await you.
Thank you.
Well done then to all of our podium finishers and all of the drivers that have taken part as well tonight. It's good fun, and the racing has been very, very tight. At times, a little bit too tight maybe, but generally speaking, I think some really good wheel-to-wheel action. And yeah, the championship will resume next time out at the Silverstone National Circuit on the 11th of May. So next Monday nights are your British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy nights. And yeah, that Silverstone National Circuit is really going to test everybody's racecraft, I think, because the slipstream effect around that high-speed circuit is always going to bunch the whole field together and give us this sort of titanic slipstreaming battling. We even saw elements of that here at Brands Hatch. That will be even more exaggerated when we head to Silverstone next time out. We then head to Alton Park, Snetterton, back to Silverstone onto the international circuit, the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit here in the southeast of England for the championship decider on the 8th of June. So Luke Browning then, despite not finishing in the points for the first time all year in race number 2, is your points leader as we head to Silverstone next time out. Chris Lullum second, Zach O'Sullivan moves into third ahead of Marion Kramers and Nico Verone, who gets his first win of the season, the third different winner from the first 4 races, and I'm sure will be looking to return to the top step next time out at Silverstone. That, though, I think is just about all that we have time for here at the Brands Hatch Indy Circuit. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for the action. Thanks to Damien Meaden and Dan Blake for joining me earlier in the broadcast too. British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy has been brought to you in association with Year One Racing TV, Alpha Live, and Momentum Social. And don't forget, you can catch up with all of the action once again on the British Formula 4 and Year One Racing TV YouTube pages. You can miss any of the action either from these races or last week at Brands Hatch. The whole season will be there for you to watch. And we'll be back again next Monday evening for rounds 5 and 6 on Silverstone. Thanks all for joining us. See you again next week.